Hollywood doesn't help matters.
Uh-huh.
When you talk special forces, you see Dwayne Johnson,
Yeah.
Jason. I call it the biceps, the bullets, and the bombs. It's the offensive action, which is 25% of what we do in the special forces. 50% of what we do is what we just touched on. It's support and influence and hearts and minds. It's being embedded with locals in these communities, understanding the politics, the demographics, the tribal influences. So there's an element I took from that. That's what I've used from my time in the special forces, not the offensive action. I've used those communication skills to build up that network. So there's an element that, and obviously there's an element probably more of a nature side of things.
I'm Todd Vande, CEO of Stark, and I've gone from vegan to paleo to keto to carnivore, from cryosaunas to ice baths to training like an athlete to being injured like one, enhancing my mobility and optimizing my sex hormones with thousands of labs and various forms of scans. I'm surrounded by high-level medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, nutritionists, and strength coaches, all leading me in concert to a state of optimal health. And I'm here to share that with you regardless of your age, your genes, or your medical conditions. And today, I'm really excited because I'm joined by Dean Stott, a friend of mine and a former British Special Forces soldier turned author. Check out his book called Relentless. It's absolutely amazing. And he's also a humanitarian. Dean has lived through what I would think would be hell, but I don't think he sees it like that, and has come out the other side with a powerful belief in the strength of human connection under extreme stress. Absolutely amazing guy with relationships. We're going to explore a remarkable part of his story. He has so many. This is a time he evacuated Jewish settlers during a fairly recent conflict. He was unarmed, navigating language barriers, and how that experience shaped his view on relationships, resilience, and common ground. He did similar evacuations in Libya and Afghanistan. So let's dive in. He has a fascinating story, but the part in which I'm going to really expand on here, there's just so much, is that peaceful evacuation and the lessons that can be pulled from his approach. We all have experiences while under duress that take an empathetic and kind of a delicate touch to further develop relationships. They're so critical to our health and longevity. It's human connection. It's such a powerful part of our health journey that I think we oftentimes forget. And I'm excited to share his wisdom on that topic and learn how one of the best and strongest men I know uses such a light touch in finding unique ways in which to relate to others that help him build community during such duress and in all parts of the world, even with language barriers. It's such an amazing guy. You have a lot of amazing life stories, right? There's one story that I really want to hone in on, and I don't, correct me if I'm off on some of the facts, but October 7th, 2023.
Yes.
Tell me what happened, why you were in Israel.
Yep.
And what was going on and what you did.
Yeah. So October 7th, 2023. Obviously, a lot of people know that date. I was actually in Disneyland on that day. A friend
here or in
here? No, here. I got invited to a place called Club 33.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. It's like a private members club within Disney. So we had no kids with us. But my sort of history, I specialize in crisis management evacuation plans. And so some of the history, we helped 1,200 in Afghanistan, single-handedly evacuated the Canadian embassy out of Libya. I was there when the American ambassador killed in Benghazi, evacuated an oil company. So I had a lot of history in this space. So because of October 7th and how things were unfolding, my phone was blowing up. And
when you were with your family,
yeah, when I was with my wife, I could see there was something going on.
Were you in the line for a ride or something?
That's the great thing about Club 33. You don't have to get
okay.
You actually go straight to the front. But I don't think it really come to light everything that had unfolded. We didn't realize the enormity of the event until the next morning. I received a text from a friend whose auntie and uncle were on a tour in Bethlehem. And he was obviously concerned about their well-being. And as I'm, replying to him, Alana's looking at the TV and she said, "Look, I've just bought a flight."
She did.
She
Just
did,
like
yeah.
that.
Just like that, yeah.
Just because she was watching the news and seeing you pick up.
Watching the news, and also because we know the nuances within situations like this. You don't know how long airspace is going to remain open, and so we knew that we had to act early and get in. The difference between Israel compared to the other evacuations I'd done, Libya, Afghanistan, and we had places in Sudan as well, is I already had infrastructure in place. I already had safe
In Israel?
houses. No, I'd never been to Israel.
Okay.
The previous ones, the other places. So I had safe houses, I had security teams, I had drivers.
Jeez, just like movies.
Yeah, so I knew I had that infrastructure in place. So should we need it or activate it, we had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never been to Israel before. Fortunately for me, I'd just finished filming a Netflix show called Toughest Forces on Earth, and we were in Jordan, which was neighboring to Israel. And so in Jordan, I knew that was a safe space. I knew that I knew the colonels in the special forces, knew everyone up to King Abdullah. So for me going in, I'd reverse engineered the evacuation plan.
So how to get to Jordan, basically?
Yeah, how to get to Jordan, but how to design a plan as well. I knew a couple of security guys there. I reached out to them and said, look, I'm flying in. The most difficult thing was actually getting out of America and flying to Israel. So my wife, as I mentioned, bought me a ticket. It was Turkish Airlines. By the time we got to LAX, that flight had been cancelled, as did a lot of the American airlines. So as anticipated, we knew that getting into the country is going to be quite difficult. But El Al then opened up so many flights to get as many Israelis back to assist. So I managed to get a ticket on El Al, and I got to the airport, and these two gentlemen, clearly Secret Service for the Israelis, were questioning people in the line. And the way that I am, my stature, and, I look like a military guy. I wear military boots. They obviously came straight for me, and they're like, where are you going? I said, Israel. And they said, who are you going to see? I said, I don't know. And they're like, do you have a letter? I said, no, I don't have a letter. And they're like, well, what is it you do? I said, I do security. And they said, perfect. Do you, so what's your website? I actually don't have a website. So I was being fully transparent with these guys, but it did really sound really dodgy. Anyway, they went away. One gentleman stayed with me, and he's like, are you an MI6? I said, no, I'm too big for MI6, and sort of joking with them. They came back, and I got on the flight. They actually pulled me aside before I went on the flight and wished me well going into it, and thanked me for doing what I did. So as I said, we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know what to expect when we landed. Alana reached out to some of our friends from the Jewish community in London, in New York. By the time it was a 13-hour flight, by the time I'd landed, we had 63 families that needed assistance. But unlike maybe Libya and Afghanistan, when I landed, it was probably the safest place in the world, October the 8th, in Tel Aviv, because the streets were lined with police, with military. Tel Aviv was going about business. Jerusalem was going about business. Obviously now in Gaza, it was starting to all unfold. So by the time I landed, we had 63 families that needed assistance. And the issue here was the airlines were cancelling. So they're having to charter aircraft.
63 families. How many people would that be?
63 families. So you're averaging four people per family.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people, but I didn't actually realize.
Can I just step back for just a minute? So you went in and you have this number of people. They're clustered in a certain area?
They're all over. They're between Tel Aviv, they're in Jerusalem, some are up north in the villages towards the border of Lebanon, and there are actually a lot of people down in the south. So the first thing we needed to do is almost centralize people, get them as close to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as possible. So we started off with 63. Some people were managing to get on flights, so they were getting crossed off the list, and they were having other people added to that. The border to Jordan is normally a 24-hour crossing. You can do that, but it was only open for a certain amount of hours each day. So we're sort of having to navigate those timings, getting people across. Because people weren't aware, I was actually helping the Muslim community from Jordan was helping get Jewish people across and safely out of Amman. Alana was doing a lot behind the scenes regards chartering aircraft and finding which chartered aircraft were available and loading those people onto it. And then I also had to be mindful of the fact that, in those early stages, we didn't know how it was going to unfold. Should Lebanon get involved with this war, then that would close the Tel Aviv airspace. So we still had the fortune of having that airspace open.
Okay.
So we had to look at options. Should that happen, then what do we have? We have the road to Egypt. We have the road to Jordan. But we also have the maritime option to Cyprus. So I'm starting to make phone calls and build these plans in place.
Make phone calls, like calling favors or something, or just organize?
Just calling favors, finding out who's, going to the port just north of Tel Aviv, see what vessels there are available, those large fishing vessels that we need, but then obviously needing to find out then what are, you obviously have to stay within guidelines, make sure it's all above board. What if we do decide to move a number of people to Cyprus? What do we need to have at the other end? So
Okay.
we don't get turned around. So there was more phone calls to Cyprus.
Turned around, you mean like rejected?
Rejected.
Oof.
Yeah, because that can happen as well. And we saw it with Afghanistan as well. We got 1,200 people, assisted 1,200 people in Afghanistan, and we turned down 10 times as much of that because the paperwork wasn't in place.
Wow.
There's a lot of nuances involved. You need to have the right documentation. They need to have passports. You don't want them become investigated for human trafficking. So we knew these nuances. So these are sort of questions we're asking people in Cyprus. But actually, it was within 96 hours, we managed to get the majority of people that needed to get out. I didn't realize, and I always, forgive me if I pronounce it wrong, is it the Stott holiday? The Suk?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, it was the holiday at the time.
In that moment?
At that moment.
Okay.
And so you had 10,000 families from New York and Boston alone in Israel. And so that was the concern. You had so many foreigners in Israel during this period of time. And after the 96 hours, people were starting to trickle out. The El Al flights were helping with that. And actually, it wasn't fear from the people within the country. The issue and the pressures we were getting was from the externals. People in UK, people in America, they're seeing the news, or I call it the media monster, and thinking it's all out war.
Sure.
And actually, it's very peaceful within Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So I remember this elderly couple, and they were there, and we're like, look, we can get you on this flight. And they're like, oh, we're okay. We're going to wait until next week. They're more than happy to stay. And I'm like, well, you need to tell your son and daughter that, because they're pulling their hair out. And so you're almost like trying to manage two entities here, those that are in the country and those that are outside the country. But I saw the good and bad in social media during this time. I went against protocol. Normally, when I do my evacuations, I already have, as I said, the infrastructure in place. I already know which clients we're going to get. So we go in, do the job, and we come home. Because I didn't know who we were going to be helping, I went on social media to let people know that, we were here.
Like Instagram or something?
Like Instagram, yeah. If anyone needs any assistance, let us know. And, as I was seeing the bad, there was a lot of people saying, I hope you don't get this group out. I hope you're not helping these types of people. And, and I remember doing a TV interview, and I said, look, I'm not a religious person. I just believe in good and bad. If I have the capacity to help them, I will help them. But the irony of that interview, I did the interview in Jerusalem, the most holiest city in the world. But where I saw the good in social media, there was a husband and wife. They're from Huntington Beach originally. He's a pastor, and his wife, and they've been in Israel for 8 years, and they run a Bible college within Jerusalem city. And they had 15 students, 14 American and 1 Indian. And they'd exhausted all their options in getting these children out. The flights were getting cancelled. So you can imagine the pressure they were under from the families. Well, on that morning on social media, Jocko Willink, Jack Carr, Sean Ryan had all shared my video. And Elizabeth, who's the pastor's wife, was a big Jocko Willink fan. And she said she prayed, and she turned on the phone and said, I wonder what Jocko would do. And then there's my bald head and not Jocko's. And she messaged me. I mean, within 45 minutes, I'm walking into the oldest Protestant church in the world within Jerusalem. And I sit down with her and her husband, and we make a plan. And 48 hours later, all of those students get assisted out of the country with no cost. So, as I said, I saw the good and the bad of social media during that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing story.
Yeah.
So how much longer were you in country?
So for me, I stayed there for the 2 weeks. There was the initial 96 hours of just constantly getting, assisting people getting out. And then obviously things started to calm down then. So I wanted to make sure that we had the infrastructure in place. So I did then go recce safe houses. I made sure that people had different people's contact details for those in Jordan, for Cyprus, for the boats in the north, because I also have to remain neutral. And so for me, again, we didn't know how this could potentially spill out into the region. And so for me, I thought, well, I may end up going to Lebanon next. I may be going to Beirut to help other expats.
Okay.
And so once that infrastructure is in place and I knew it was sustainable, then I pulled back.
And the infrastructure is built of people.
People, relationships, assets, safe houses. Yeah, it's mainly people because, without the people, they can't get into the buildings, the transport, everything else. And I think that's where I've been really successful, that I have a really good network of people. It doesn't matter what religion. I think we've helped people from every religion around the world.
It's fascinating.
And it is because I call it the media monster. They will show you the dark side of people. They don't show you the good side of people. The amount of who volunteer their time, who want to help. And regardless of religion, they will help people from whatever religion, but they don't like to share that. So,
and this is central to why I wanted to talk to you. You are gifted at connecting with people, at building relationships with people. You're a soldier, and I can't imagine all the things that you've done and have been a part of. That is almost the opposite, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking about you going into a very dangerous place, pulling in pre-existing relationships, building new relationships, establishing trust in a very tenuous environment where people are out of their minds. Yeah. You're calm, but without your pre-existing relationships, you wouldn't have gotten all the other assets that were not people in place to do the work that you did. And without being able to connect with people the way you do, the families that were in country, the families that were everywhere else in the world, you wouldn't have been able to pull all that off. It's really a quite remarkable story, just focusing on the relational aspects of who you are. And I wanted to ask you, because there's a deep connection to health and interpersonal connection. Yeah. In having community. Your community is massive. Like I'm a speck in your large community. You have a lot of people in your community. You have several communities that are overlapping. Yeah. And I was just wondering if this is something about yourself that you've intentionally worked on developing, or is it just how you have always been?
I think it's an element of both, actually. It's interesting because you mentioned about being the soldier. So I was in the Tier 1 Special Forces, but actually Hollywood doesn't help matters. When you talk special forces, you see Dwayne Johnson, Jason. I call it the biceps, the bullets, and bombs. It's the offensive action, which is 25% of what we do in the special forces. 50% of what we do is what we just touched on. It's support and influence and hearts and minds. It's being embedded with locals in these communities, understanding the politics, the demographics, the tribal influences. So as an element I took from that, that's what I've used from my time in the Special Forces, not the offensive action. I've used those communication skills to build up that network. So there's an element that, and obviously there's an element probably more of a nature side of things. No, my wife, Alana, she says my USP is I can talk to anyone from any class from around the world. It doesn't matter whether you're the King of England or you're a homeless boy in Somalia. Everyone gets treated exactly the same. But then I have had people say that there's this almost like this aura, there's a natural magnetism. Right. They may feel safe in my company. So I think if you merge all that together, then I'm very gifted in the fact that I have built up this great community around me. Because you look at me, I look very...
you're a little scary looking.
A little scary looking, but then
in a cute way.
You got to trust the animals and the kids. Yeah. They don't feel scared; they just naturally come to me. But but that also can help in certain environments. But I'm glad that the people don't really see that. But that's probably where my USP is to sort of build that network as well. But that does come from a little bit of nature, but then also I did learn a lot of that from the Special Forces.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan, arguably one of the world's greatest basketball players ever, gifted as an athlete, but his effort was beyond what a lot of his competitors or even teammates were able to do or wanted to do. And that's what you've got, right? So you had some gifts, but you also trained them, you lean on them, you use them on a regular basis. And I'm really interested in that element because I think, if you look at the human genome, this is not who you are genetically. We're 99.5% the same. Yeah. And that 0.5% may be substantially unique, like you're taller than I am, your hair is not as nice as mine, et cetera, et cetera. But the epigenome, the things that you decide to do, the things that you have control over, the way you see the world, the food that you eat, the sleep that you get, how you feel when you connect to people, the eye contact that you make, those are developed over time
Yeah.
through preference, through interest, through necessity. And I'm sure you're aware of some of the work that you did to become better and better at that human connection.
Yeah.
Because without the human connection, what could you have ever done in these circumstances?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to achieve. I'm here sharing my stories, but none of it would have been achievable without that local community that we built up. But I think where I sort of did stand out from the others, a perfect example is I worked in Somalia. I went to Somalia on my own. And I like to work a lot of times on my own. My wife sort of runs the back house. And the reason for that is not because I like working on my own. It's because actually I don't have to worry about a large group of people.
Right.
I'm very culturally aware. I can look after myself. But if you take big teams, then there's lots of issues that can potentially...
Variables that you...
The variables, yeah. Then obviously they have their own welfare issues, so it's just easy if it's just myself in the initial stages. And then if we have to build out teams, we do. But I remember going into Somalia and I met this gentleman for breakfast. And he said, Dean, he said, I must receive at least 10 emails a day from security companies in New York, in London, in Australia, all touting for work. They want to come to Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but the fact that you've come into Mogadishu, you've met my family, you shared bread, we had coffee. He said, that's the distinction, is that I understand the atmosphere. They may see that I've taken a risk to go there. And then that bodes well with them. Is like it's not just someone who's emailing and wants to, because all these security companies offer the same services. How do you stand out? What's the difference in you and them? And for me, is understanding those cultures, is going in and actually, I surf a lot when I'm in Mogadishu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we go spear diving, we get lobsters.
Are you a good surfer?
Yeah, I like surfing. I've surfed since I was a young boy.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You told me that. Yeah.
So it's like, but if you tell people I do that in Mogadishu, like, really? Because I'm seeing this. And so, yeah, I think they like that because I then go away and I promote those countries in a good way, and I sort of share the positives about those countries rather than all the negatives. And so, yeah, I think that may be the distinction between me and others, is that I take that risk to go in on my own and build up that network rather than doing it via social media or email.
Right. You also seem to love it, right? Going in and building the network.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You seem to love people.
Love building teams.
You seem optimistic.
Yeah, well, everything in the Special Forces, you have a mission or objective. Mm-hmm. So I always go in with a mission objective. I always know what I want to achieve, and then I'll just work backwards from that. And how do we do it? And that's no different from this.
Do you write it out? Do you just have it in your head? What do you do when it comes to the setting objectives?
So obviously, what is the outcome you want? Mm-hmm. You can write a plan, but we have in the military, plan doesn't survive first contact.
Uh-huh.
One of the other things I took from the Tier 1 Special Forces is the fact that we would have a mission and objective, but we're very expeditionary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you go in and you actually don't know what's there, what isn't there. You still have what you need to achieve and you work back from that. Right. So that's how I do that with everything I do. Even when I did my bike ride, I had a plan, had an objective, but with that plan, we had to sort of flex that plan and flex that project as situations were changing on the ground. So I do have a basic plan,
but it's really
a lot of flex in it.
It's really more focused on the outcome that you want, clearly defined outcome,
the objective, and then go back from that. And then if the plan doesn't work, so even with the evacuations, I have a primary, secondary, and a tertiary route. Always make sure, well, if the road's blocked, then what are the other alternative options for us? So I remember going out once to a mining company out in Colombia to assess their evacuation plans. And I could see that the guy, a lot of them have evacuation plans, but they tend to do it, they type it up and, they go on Google Maps and try to work it out. And so this gentleman, I was like, so can you show me your evacuation? He said, yeah, we take this road here. And I was like, perfect. I said, we'll go out there tomorrow and we'll knowing that it was going to be raining that afternoon and it was a muddy road. We went out the next day and it was impassable. So I was like, perfect. So what's the secondary plan? He's like, he sort of looks at me like that. He knew what I was on about. So that's the same. I like to have a plan, but then I always look at the B, C, and the D. Got it. Even if you have to get to Z. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fascinating. I know this is just one little glimpse in your life story. You have so much more. I mean, we can go on for hours and hours. I know you don't have the time for that. If our listeners want to find out more about you or find you, how do they do that?
I am on social media, Dean Stott. I do have a website.
STOTT.
STOTT. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, things are changing all the time. You know, I work still in the media space, do books. I'm still helping in security where I can, but I've now taken a transition in my life. I always say people have transitions in their life, and I'm now entering the next stage. I'm now working with a private investment firm, Silico Capital.
Okay.
So sort of taking everything I've learned from my time in the military, the security, will records, and sort of now adapting it into this. And it is actually no different. I remember someone saying, Tier 1 Special Forces, will record, Netflix, Silico Capital, where one of them is glaringly jumping out. But it isn't really. It's all about high performance teams. It's a team of operators. There still is a risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about the mission success. And so, yeah, I think these sort of traits can be transferable in anything you do in life.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank
I
you
appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate it.
If you'd like to learn more about Stark, you can find us at stark.health. That's stark.health.